Doing that. To my right, we have two very talented voice actors. We're going to be talking a little bit voice acting. We're going to talk a little bit Demon Slayer, talk a little Japanese anime. If you guys have questions, please do so throughout the 25 minutes we have with our two guests to the right. And I'll start off with this for Brianna and Landon. Let's talk a little bit about the job of being a voice actor and also doing Japanese anime. And the challenges that genre specifically has for the two of you to be voice actors. And whoever wants to go first. Because Brianna looked straight at Landon and was like, you're going first on this one.
I'm just very hot. I'm like dying. Specific challenges with voice acting.
And in Japanese anime.
Yeah, I mean, anime is more specific than video games usually because it's very technical besides being acting and creative based. Like we have to fit the lip flaps and make it sound real and believable. So that's always like a specific challenge to anime.
Thank you. Yeah, and our challenge is to honor the intention of the original seiyuu, the Japanese voice actor, as much as possible, while at the same time, and this is also something that also is a good question for because there's a whole process. We're at the very end of a long process where it's, initially it's translated, there's a direct translation, and then someone else comes along and adapts it so that it matches those pesky lip flaps, but also so that it sounds like, something that someone would say naturally. And then our job is to make sure that's delivered in just the right way. And so, we're just a very small part of a pretty long and involved process, but we're the ones who kind of get to put the little flourish on at the end.
What's the challenges of moving from it first being in the Japanese language and then in the English language, and then what you guys ultimately get to voiceover? Unless, of course, you both speak Japanese, and then that's a different question we have here.
I don't personally. I'm not bilingual, but I know some folks, though, who are in the dubbing scene who are, and it serves them really well because they don't have a problem matching that intention because they can, pick up on all the nuances and stuff. Whereas with us, I don't know, maybe you are bilingual. Do you speak Japanese? A little bit, okay. Well, for me, yeah, I definitely, depend on my director, definitely to kind of, provide me the proper context. And I do research and stuff. I try to read, the manga when I know I'm going to be in something, or watch the previous episodes. But at the same time, though, in the moment, you want the director right there with you to kind of give you the emotional context of every scene to make sure that you're nailing every little subtle nuance that needs to be nailed.
Everything we're doing is so dependent on the director. Like the director is the one that knows all the characters, all the scenarios. Sometimes we're just like this little puzzle piece. And I love watching the show afterwards to see like all the puzzle pieces together, but it's so disjointed and it's weird just doing your own little part when there's so much trust involved with the director.
And that's a really good point because coming out of COVID, all of you were in your own homes doing the voice in your bedroom or dens or what have you, and now you're kind of going back to the studio. Let's talk a little bit about kind of the changes there that coming out of COVID have happened to voice acting.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of studios really do prefer in-person people. That's the technical term. Instead of remote. And I know I really like having the energy of like the director and all the different people, and it's so easy not having to like worry about adjusting my gain and all the technical stuff. So usually I like going in person, but so as soon as we were allowed to, the shift kind of started.
Yeah, because the Demon Slayer movie, Mugen Train, was actually recorded, entirely during lockdown. So none of those folks were able to go into the studio. And some of them had really good at-home setups to begin with. I had to upgrade like crazy. I had to turn my walk-in closet into a broadcast quality studio, so that was a fun challenge. Because I knew that, this isn't going to just be on TV, this is going to be in theaters. So yeah, we had to make sure it sounded nice. For now, though, things have definitely... We prefer in studio, especially Crunchyroll. That's one of the reasons why I actually relocated from LA to Dallas. To the Dallas-Fort Worth area was because I knew that they would want me to come in for pretty much everything. Whereas LA folks, some of them are still okay with doing remote, and for anything else, I'm still willing to travel. It's not that bad of a flight. But yeah, that's kind of what it takes to keep your foot in both worlds in terms of those hubs, because they're with voiceover, the main hubs are L.A., the DFW, Dallas-Fort Worth area, New York to some extent. Canada used to have kind of a scene. I don't know what's left there so much anymore, but back in the day.
Is there certain techniques that you have to prepare for a role, whether it's how you make sure your voice is ready to go on the day of filming, or prep work before, prep work during, prep work after? Let's talk a little bit about that process.
It totally depends on the project. Like when I was doing ReZero, I knew how big that show was when I booked it. So I did go ahead and watch the show beforehand, but I don't have the luxury of doing that with every show and playing every video game and all that stuff. Time's a thing. But it just totally depends. But I like getting as much info as I can, and otherwise on the day, the director gives you all the things that you need to know, and you kind of just dive in.
Yeah, because every once in a while, you'll get to be a part of something where you're already a fan. Like I was a big JoJo's Bizarre Adventure fan way before I got to play Rohan. Same thing with Chainsaw Man, where I loved the manga, and then I got to play Future Devil. But for the most part, though, this stuff, we may be aware of it kind of dimly, or we may have absorbed some things through just, cultural osmosis. But, sometimes you're going to be kind of, not really going in blind, but you're going to be really depending on, like she said, the director, and any kind of research you can do ahead of time. And in terms of more vocally stressful sessions, if you know that you're playing a character who does a lot of screaming, you definitely want to make sure that you're not damaging your instrument, and that means warming up, cooling down. Kellen Goff's talked about this before, about how when he booked JoJo, he started researching how death metal vocalists keep their voices clear and undestroyed. And that was, it served him very well. But I also, recommend, you can pick it up at CVS, Throat Coat. Throat Coat is very nice. It's a tea that can help to preserve your voice.
All keeping Throat Coat.
I think, it really is just us. Maybe, we're definitely their prime demographic.
And how do you keep track? Because both of you have, and I looked at the Internet Movie Database, over 100 titles to your names. How do you keep track of, did I do this voice yesterday? Did I do this voice earlier today? What am I doing tomorrow? What am I doing next week? Talk about kind of that, I'm going to guess, a pretty hectic schedule of going one way and another.
Yeah, I have so many spreadsheets and calendars. I have my main calendar that I break down, the rate, the date, who all is involved in the project, how many miles I drove and stuff like that for collecting miles at the end of the year for taxes. I also have my Google Calendar that I color code for projects, and then on the back end, I have a team of people that collect clips for me and do all the other, the back end stuff.
It's a really involved process, keeping track of everything, after a while. Because at first you're at first every little bit part, lives in your mind and your heart, and you're so happy. Then over time, though, you're still happy to, be doing this, obviously, because it's a, privileged position to be in, but it's hard to keep everything straight. That's why it's always so nice when you guys come up to us and want a quote. If you guys have one in mind already, that's always so helpful. It's always so nice, because then we don't have to dredge it up from, the back room of our memory.
Well, and look at Brianna, your Instagram page. You have your two cats. How much do you practice your voices with your two cats?
I can honestly say never have I ever.
Okay, good.
In my life.
That's good. I had to ask that. And also, looking, you also have a music career as well. Let's talk about the work of building that album, Starless. I was able to see that one video you guys that you had online. It was very leather, and it was great cinematography, and I thought it was a great video. So if you see it online with YouTube, go check it out with Brianna. But talk about the musical process and how that's different from the voice acting process.
I mean, it's a totally different creative process because it's totally different. The only similar thing is that I'm using my imagination, I guess, and using my voice. But for songs, I usually come up with a melody, and then I will write the whole song with the melody, and then I send it over to my producer, who's in Kenya, and he puts music to it, and I approve it, or I say, oh, what about making it more like this, or I need like a deeper, more magical bridge or something. And we collaborate, and then the song's done, and then I throw it out into the world, and it's hard having 2 careers. So there's only so much I could do. At one point, I really did have to make a decision, and I chose acting. So I focus mainly on acting. So I do as much as I can with music, but without like a team of people for everything. It's just so impossible, so hard.
Well, it's interesting. It's interesting that you found a producer in Kenya. I don't know how many producers in Kenya for music there are, but that seems kind of a unique find.
I mean, you know, the internet is a magical place. It makes our world really, really small. So I got really lucky, and I found him on like a music collaborating site, and he's amazing. So I never let him go. He's done 99% of all my songs.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Are there any questions out here in the audience to ask?
Don't be shy.
Absolutely, yes. The one in the white shirt right here.
Well, we almost always, it's more about the intention and less about the sound sometimes. Like with Chainsaw Man, for example, Future Devil sounds very different in Japanese because Mike McFarland, our director, really wanted to take it in a different direction. Sometimes, yeah. Other times, though, you really do want to get, as one-to-one as you can possibly get it. So it just depends on, the director, the client needs. There are a lot of factors involved. But as far as inspirations, I always tell actors, especially younger ones, it's important to really cast a really wide net in terms of your style and your influences. I watch a lot of really old movies, and so some of my stuff, especially more of my accent work, I don't know if you guys are watching Black Butler right now, but I play a very devious little boy by the name of Maurice Cole, and he's kind of informed by these old Universal horror movies. He sounds a little bit like George Zucco. Oh, you are? Nice. Yeah, he's got some George Zucco in there. He's got some Henry Danielle in there. So it's nice to not just draw your sources, from just video games or just anime. It's nice to have a wider set of influences because I think it can lead to a more complex and nuanced performance sometimes when you have different things to draw on. And then also, you're not just trying to fill the same archetype again and again. You can find different ways to play similar types of characters, different approaches. And so it's good for the performance's sake, but also, frankly, it's also helpful for you to not feel like you're repeating yourself too much. Like Rampo, for example, vocally sounds a lot like Hoshina from Kaiju number 8. They have similar voices, but very different intentions, very different kind of mindsets. And so that's kind of part of the challenge of what we do, is to, even if the voice is resting in a similar place, it's coming from a different background. For example, Hoshina is in the military, so he obviously is very different from a lazy, snack-loving detective. So that's those nuances are really interesting to play with, and those styles and those influences can guide you to making those decisions.
Yeah, I'll just add to that, like on top of what you said, like, we have our vocal cords, and there's only so much we can do with our vocal cords. So sometimes in a session, if I'm doing a character voice that sounds like a little bit similar to Rem, I'll catch it like, oh, she kind of sounds like Rem, and I'm like, oh no, oh no, my hair,
Oh no, wait.
All right, we have a wardrobe malfunction here. So as we're working on the hair there, anyone have a slight knife or anything there? There we go. There. Hey, Landon, what drew you to horror comic or horror movies from the old school?
Oh, that would be my dad. Yeah, I grew up with the classic Universal monster movies. The Dracula, Frankenstein, the Wolfman. The cinema of, James Whale, who did the original Frankenstein and Bride, but he also did stuff like The Old Dark House, and, he kind of invented the concept of camp in a lot of ways. When you think of camp, you probably think of like Rocky Horror or something, or John Waters, but this James Whale guy, he really, frankly, invented the style. He was a pioneer. And so for some of the more fun, juicy, over-the-top characters that I play, I definitely think about him and kind of how he would direct his actors to be. But yeah, I started off definitely just because of my dad. He loves old movies, so that's why I grew up with the monster movies and old Sherlock Holmes stuff and the Sean Connery James Bond movies.
And Brianna, for you, for horror flicks, you said you were a fan of that as well, correct?
Yeah. A lot of my fan base calls me Blonde Elvira, and I don't get that nickname for nothing.
And we have a question in the front row here in the black, yeah.
It's not a simuldub, so I have not had that experience with Demon Slayer.
Chainsaw Man was a simuldub, yeah. But then there are also, ones that are like day and date. Like I did one recently called Metallic Rouge. That was, we tried to keep lockstep with the Japanese. And then with Kaiju number 8, it goes even further. The sub and the dub premiere at the exact same time. Yeah. It's kind of a rarity, but I hope it becomes more popular because it seems like the fans like it. So we'll see.
What advice would you give to folks that want to start a career in voice acting and maybe you're like, hey, I didn't realize there's all these, you can do Japanese anime, you can do video games, you can do this, you can do that. Where do I start?
I think taking lots of acting classes, because I know the impression is that, no pun intended, that thank you, that voice acting is, just putting on a bunch of silly voices. The truth is, it is acting. So just classes, dive deep, and make sure you enjoy acting. It's not easy.
Yeah, because despite the silliness that I just did, voice acting is acting with a capital A. And, everyone can do a rough approximation of like Bugs Bunny, but can you do Bugs reciting Shakespeare? Can you do him if he's doing like the Tom Cruise deathbed confessional scene from Magnolia? Can you do that? You probably won't have to, but you could. You never know what the material's going to throw at you. So, yeah, it's the difference between a party trick and a profession, in terms of, impressions are all well and good, they're great, but, you have to believably embody a character. Acting is, finding honesty in imaginary circumstances, and it can be, quite a process to really master. And also I would caution anyone who wants to get into this, if you want to do it to get, rich and famous and to chase the clout, you're going to have kind of a rough time. You really have to act for the sake of it, for the sake of loving your character, loving the story, and really trying to do right by those elements. If you get into it for the wrong reasons, it can be kind of a miserable existence. So you have to make sure that your intentions are pure, I guess.
And I think also with voice acting, it also has to do with not only you being very stiff like this, but also using your hands, your arms, your facial expressions. Is there a technique that you have that's in your toolbox that actually works well for you when you're doing different voice roles?
Different characters have different physicality. Like if the character is really confident, then maybe I'll find that I put my hands on my hips. Or if it's like Wiz or a softer character, I'll kind of like hold my hands together and be a little bit more demure. But physicality affects it.
Absolutely, yeah. It's fun because ever so often I'll get to sit in on sessions and see how my fellow actors, embody their characters. And some people just stand perfectly still, and yet they'll break your heart, and they're going through all these incredible emotions, and they can just, draw it up from deep within them. It's incredible. Other folks, though, get much more physical. They move around. They have to be careful sometimes not to hit the mic because they're... It happens. Yeah. You just have to be, mindful of that. And when I first started out, I did a lot of Walla sessions, which is like essentially like the voiceover equivalent of being an extra in a movie, where you're like, you're embodying different crowds or, kind of random background characters. And that can be hard too, is because you're in the booth with a bunch of other people, and if any of them are gesticulators, you might get slapped in the face. Daryl Delphin slapped me at least once. Purely by mistake, I'm sure.
Any final questions for our guests here this afternoon? Seeing none, let's thank Brianna and Landon for being on our panel discussion this afternoon.
Thank you guys, much appreciated.
And you can talk to them in person off into one of the large halls down on the other side of the festival grounds.
Yeah, I'm going to go eat lunch. Not sure about you, but we'll be at our table for the rest of the day, so please stop by and say hi.
Let's give it one more hand for Brianna and Landon.